At least 9 people have died in just 8 days in violent clashes between Afghan and Pakistani forces. The violence has occurred on an important border crossing between both nations, the one linking the town of Chaman in Pakistan to Spin Boldak in Afghanistan. On a daily basis, traders and ordinary people use it to cross into both nations. But it's also a part of a disputed border between the two countries. The so-called Durand Line was drawn by the British during colonial rule. Afghanistan has refused to agree to it as an official border with Pakistan, and the past few days have seen that disagreement turn deadly.
The remains of shells that have damaged homes and destroyed lives. In the border town of Chaman in Pakistan, civilians are again counting their losses just a few days after clashes broke out between their country and neighboring Afghanistan.
Fighting's happening on both sides of the border. People are leaving the area. One mortar hit a house and killed one person. Also, some shells hit houses in a nearby village and wounded women and children. Both sides are using heavy weapons, and also you can see and hear sounds of firing and blasts.
Treating all the injured has pushed hospitals into crisis mode. Doctors are sure that scenes like this will continue to happen if the conflict turns hot again. Since the birth of Pakistan in 1947, Afghanistan has contested the British-era boundary demarcation, known as the Durand Line. Tensions have further risen since the Taliban returned to power last year, mainly over Pakistan's construction of a fence along the border. Meanwhile, Islamabad says Taliban rulers have sheltered militants to carry out attacks on its soil. As bilateral ties suffer, civilians are bearing the brunt of the conflict.
I work on the border. We ask the governments to stop the fighting so we can continue to earn our living.
At this key trade route between the two neighbors, civilians are fleeing. It's a fight that many who live closest to the border just want to end.
Let's get more context on this from my colleague DW reporter Binish Javed, who joins me now in the studio. Binish, welcome. What's the immediate cause of this conflict?
Biresh, so Afghanistan blames Pakistan for having some of its checkposts in Afghan territory. And what Pakistani officials say is that some of the Pakistani security forces were repairing one such checkpost, and then the dispute started from there, firing started, and then we know that it turned lethal, as we have seen in the report. Another reason for these clashes is that Afghan Taliban forces, Pakistan says, are damaging the fence that it has installed on the 2,600 kilometer long border. So for Pakistan, it's a matter of national security. Afghan Taliban say that they don't want this fence on the border, and they do not recognize the border, also known as the Durand Line.
So why doesn't the Afghan Taliban, or why haven't other Afghan governments also recognized the Durand Line?
So Durand Line was demarcated in 1893 by British colonial rules to clearly show the limit from where British India started. At that time, Afghans said that this border or this frontier has divided the Pashtun population, and also it has deprived Afghanistan of access to the Arabian Sea and made it a landlocked country. Also, Afghan Taliban say that this porous border would allow free movement of its people, free movement of local tribesmen to carry on businesses, and they also have relatives in both parts of Pakistan border. The problem is that for years, there has been a free movement on this border, and there is a public sentiment also on both sides of the border, and especially in Afghanistan, that has never recognized this as a border. And now, because of the fence, public sentiment has turned against the fence, and like all previous governments, Afghan Taliban also do not want to recognize Durand Line because politically and domestically, it's an issue, it's a hot issue.
Now, speaking of the Afghan Taliban, Pakistan's long-time support of the Afghan Taliban is well known. One would think that this provides the ideal conditions for both sides to sit across the table and sort this out. Why aren't they being able to do this?
It's a difficult issue to resolve. For Pakistan, like I have said, it's a matter of national security. Pakistan believes that if the border is porous, then terrorists and militants from Afghan side can enter into Pakistan, attack Pakistani state. It also doesn't want a huge influx of Afghan refugees entering into Pakistan because through the border crossings, and there are 5 border crossings between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and anybody who's entering into Pakistan, Pakistani forces checks their documentation, and for instance, and many of the times these Afghans refugees who want to enter into Pakistan do not have proper documentation. Pakistan also wants to stop inflow of narcotics entering into Pakistan. So for Pakistan, it has many reasons for having this fence installed, and for Afghan Taliban, they do not recognize it. So it's a rift, it's a problem that doesn't seem to be, I don't think it's going to be resolved anytime soon.
You also talked about militants coming across from the Afghan side into Pakistan. At the same time, we have attacks by the Pakistani Taliban on Pakistani security forces. Are those increasing attacks somehow related to this border dispute that involves the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistan government?
So Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or Pakistani Taliban, it's one of the main reasons why there is a big rift between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban. Pakistan believes that Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has close ties with Afghan Taliban, familial ties. Many of these members of Pakistan Taliban live in Afghanistan. That's what Pakistan claims. Pakistan has waged a long and expensive war against Pakistani militants. Thousands of people have lost their lives in terrorist attacks claimed by Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And Pakistan was hoping that if it will have an Afghan Taliban government in Afghanistan, somehow, because of Pakistan's years of supporting Afghan Taliban, they would listen to Pakistan and would try to influence and control the movement of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan into Pakistan. But the opposite has happened. It has kind of surprised Pakistan, and there are many reasons why Afghan Taliban are supporting Pakistani Taliban. They are from the same Pashtun belt. Both of them have helped each other in the past, and for now it seems that Afghan Taliban at least are not listening to Pakistan when it comes to controlling the movement of Pakistani Taliban.
Finish. We'll leave it there for the time being, but thanks so much for coming in and breaking that down for us.
Thank you.